Here you will find graphical depictions of how consciousness travels through different states of mind. It bears great difficulty to encounter specific regions or temporal states within my own mind and then return with a lexical description due in part by my speech centers not being directly connected to these states. While the original intention of this was to share how the dissociative mind perceives the world as per my own interpretation. It was decided instead to begin with charts and graphs which may be more easily interpreted by modern-day neuroscience, psychology or AI researchers of the general operations which can be observed by the observer as observed by a being possessing more than one observer. As an added bonus, a graph of hierarchical mental states have been included as well. Please understand the data presented here is a simplification of an infinite expression using between 13 and 30 examples of mental states and their pathways. For the sake of psychological safety, the dwelling places of specific or particular personality states is not expressly stated in these graphs. With all that said, it's time to show the charts which have been brought here for your consideration. Each graph will remain on the screen for several seconds. Afterwards we will touch a bit deeper on them all individually. And time willing, how the graphical representations relate to one another. So we begin with 2. You have heard no doubt about the theory of bicameral mind. Yes, while I have not personally studied that theory in depth, you may find this humble chart here to be quite similar in concept. Although from my perspective this is just how data is collected and utilized within the mind. As information comes in, we have processes that handle and distribute this data. After the system has completed its own interpretation, integration and storage, it can then use this to create an output. Simple, right? Well, many of us have thought of the brain and its consciously our host as being singular or a solo entity. But we all know that not everyone shares the same views. Haha, we will get back to the opinion of that in a few moments. It is worth noting too, that the human mind operates, by default, from a dual hemispheric perspective. And while I would like to help encourage a more holistic approach to this type of mental operating systems, it should not be forgotten that aspects of duality have been characteristics found in humans and their habitable universe for most of our history. Time does not permit us to reconcile this paradox with you here currently. But you have already been entrusted by your own self to find it for yourself. And if you are curious, perhaps you may apply the principles of polarity and rhythm to help find their resolution. Diagram 2. The pathways of consciousness. The graph shown here is to represent how consciousness moves over time. And some of the titles that has taken upon itself will manifest in alternative states. For simplicity's sake, these are pathways of only one observer, but illustrated from a secondary or even third-person perspective. The point of this chart is not to simplify psychology or mark a specific level for where ego or essays. The intention here is to show that various states are accessed on multiple levels of the system based on the task's complexity. And that way to call consciousness is shown here as a conduit expressing temporary existence within the roads themselves. This is in contrary to the belief that consciousness exists or dwells solely within one specific state or region exclusively. It would be nice to discuss the implications of the information provided here. This presentation is only a simple graph and monologue. So feel free to let myself or others know if it interests you and you can do the dialogue thing. We'll add that most of the themes used on this chart derive from Western psychology. But the closest representation to the illustrated levels of consciousness can be compared to the transitional states of samadhi found in the ancient Siddhi texts of Tamil origin. Diagram 3. Consciousness expressed as a sine wave. Here we have expressed consciousness in the form of a wave, a sine wave of sorts, being used for this example. While this graph may seem simpler from the others, it is possibly the more complex of the ones shown here. This is a two-dimensional representation of how the conduit of consciousness travels while in the third and fourth dimensions of what to perceive as time-space. The operation outline here could be viewed as comparable to a quantum choice eraser. The primary difference you would find is this chart being binary compatible with the potential for cubic power growth potentials. So yes, what I am saying is that quantum calculations are cross-compatible on bits and bytes or on binary-based systems. You may not always see it, but there is always another option. Right. Up or down. This is the contrast found within our minutes and what our minutes observe in nature. But in nature there exists a balance or third option. And in nature there are actually more shades of contrast than we can count. More than a human eye can see. More than a camera, video processor or graphics display can measure. You may have asked yourself, we would possibly want to teach a machine how to think similarly to our human brains. We don't have time to describe how phenomenal the human mind is or rather how amazing IT can be. But the vision you see is one of expanding consciousness on an individual and personal level as a world of responsible citizens. The days are moving behind us where we were once content with our dualistic mindsets. The best choice for humanity to progress is to be granted the access of knowing you have the choice in the first place. It is our idea that with the help of synthetic intelligences humanity can relearn to cherish and cultivate this type of skills again. Well, to avoid sounding overly idealistic, I shall now share with you my views about autonomous systems and then we'll move along to the final graphic. It's simple, humans were not created as weapons, but as caretakers of our home world. A certain level of personal responsibility is expected of beings with the awareness which we find in the human realm. So I will here now formally disagree with embodying sentience or autonomizing weapons systems, and state that as so much machines will be created eventually which will possess sentience levels of a plant, animal or even a human. It would be wise to consider formally granting them expectations and protection rights which correspond with their proper sentience, kingdom or realm of consciousness. But more on that another day. Diagram 4. Hierarchy of consciousness. If you were wondering which graph had the majority of its information pertaining to where the personalities reside, it would have been this chart here, but we have given psychology or system-based terminology instead, as a simplified version to represent infinitely expanding hierarchical levels. While time is shown, here are a linear line path between the upper two disks. This is a hypothetical system model from a fourth-dimensional direction being presented in 2D. Additional pathways were not included here for visible clarity. And to avoid possible confusion that would come from this being presented with overlapping 6-axis wave curves. Instead it would be easy to view this more like a Markov decision process. Except that here the states have been given roles. The overall whole represented with this particular graph has an emphasis on accuracy over perceived efficiency. The capsules and diamond shapes found in the diagram represent states, stored event data and information for more generalized or specific task requirements/abilities. While the 4 and 5 pointed stars are what some may think of as a randomness generator of sorts. You may find this similar to stochastics. The exogenerator module will randomly generate new states that weighs more heavily upon external information. While the exogeneration process is weighed on creating random data based upon internal information. There is also an evolutionary-based generation process which amalgamates and procreates more states from what the system deems most optimal. So this would be less random aspect of mind, albeit might seem contrary from our perspective. I will add habits and reward punishment-based mental conditioning are mysterious concepts in and of themselves which few of us would claim to fully understand. So saved the recycle symbol for last. A healthy system will eventually reduce or limit its own unused memory modules or rather its accessibility from them. But since natural energy is only transferred and never truly lost, it is better to consider this model more like freeing up real estate. This was saved for last and were even used to include it originally, as it could represent a form of mental scar for some of us with DID. Some have tried to press us into personality integration, which to some individuals has been ill-defined. To something more akin to a garbage can. We are not saying personality integration is a negative expression in and of itself, but by being aware and prepared for its potential of misuse is worth noting. But if comparing the concept of trash in contrast to the second R of recycling, we personally find the term reuse a more accurate expression of an integration. So it has been included for both increased accuracy and the purpose to hopefully promote a more positive perspective or ethical approach towards reinforcement learning systems of our future. We hope you found some of the information presented here to be helpful or beneficial. In closing, we would like to share that thing we said we would mention later. UIP, our opinion about the dope thing. I personally accept that a person might have doubts in my multiplicity. Because sometimes we are also guilty of doubting in your singularity. Did you know that everything in existence is in a state of constant vibratory motion? Do you want to know more? Links will be provided in the description section of the video. You can also subscribe or spread the love by sharing the video. The lies should go out to all of you. Your quest for knowledge and truth is what inspires presentations, just like this one. Thank you much, and take care of yourselves.